Alright, so the iPhone 11 has just come out and the bloody producers issued me a challenge. He says I have to film a short film with this phone and it's got to look cinematic, whatever that means. So for all of you who've been asking us to change up our Protog cheap camera challenge, this is your day. I give you the Crap Photographer Pro Camera Challenge. Will I fail spectacularly or just miserably? Let's find out. Three things people usually do to make things look a bit more cinematic is use a lot of good light, slow-mo, because it makes everything look good, and smooth motion is very important. So if the image stabilization on this isn't that great, I'll use a gimbal, but these things together hopefully will make this video look a lot more cinematic.
Helping me with my quest is Chiara Ye, a Chinese-Italian photographer and food stylist whose works adorn the menus and walls of many of Beijing's top F&B establishments.
So for a budding food photographer such as myself, what are your top 3 tips?
So if you find yourself in a restaurant, look for the natural source of light. That means next to the window or next to the door. If you're not sure about the angles, just shoot from above. That works almost always. And if you want to be like a pro photographer, study the picture that you like or your favorite photographers. Just take one picture, you try to copy that, the same composition, the same lighting. And once you can get in there, you can try to put something more creative. My favorite food photographer actually is Francesco Tonelli.
Okay. Of course you'd be an Italian. Francesco Tonelli. Remember that.
He's the father, the god of food photography.
I'll be using the iPhone 11 Pro to film a featurette about Chiara. Today she's shooting the menu at Jar Jar Bistro and as always has prepared a full brief with sample photos and themes for her client Paca to consider.
See, what I find really strange is outside of China, you don't really see picture menus. You just get a couple lines of words and it's like, I don't even understand what these words mean.
In Europe, if you have a picture in the menu, it means like your restaurant is not good.
Really?
Yes, because they will think that you are a chain.
At my first place, I didn't have any photos. And then on our last project together, and Chiara said, put some photos, it sells much better.
Yeah,
people look at the photos and they say, I want this one.
Yeah,
they don't even read.
Chiara likes her work to showcase a venue's personality, so she's going to use the kitchen's serving window for her first shot. It gives off the homey, relaxed vibe we're going for. However, before setting up a camera, Chiara always takes test shots on her iPhone to show her client the composition. The triple camera setup on the 11 makes this much easier.
This is the ultra wide, yeah. It's super wide now.
Super wide. It's easier for me to tell to the client, like, this is what we're going to do, instead of saying, like, imagine this is going to be wider.
Yeah.
We've got the green light from Paca, so now we're good to go. I'd help Chiara set up, but, you know, we don't speak the same language.
Well, obviously this says import image, but it actually says importa immagini. Mario, importa immagini. You know, when you set up for a shot, you got to make sure that your histogramma is just correct, and then your livelli and esposizione RGB. And it's not. Doesn't quite have the same ring to it.
Now that Chiara's done all the hard work of setting everything up, I'm going to take her advice and copy her shot.
So that was a bit weird. I pretty much got it set up the same way as Chiara did, and when I shot the time lapse, it actually apparently did it in tele, and I have no idea why it's done that.
I'm shooting all this on the wide, which is the main camera on the iPhone 11 Pro.
Let's see if that worked. Good. Okay. The second time was the charm. I don't know what happened the first time.
All iPhone 11 models sport a 13mm full-frame equivalent ultra-wide lens, which is great for small spaces. Problem is, it doesn't work well in low light and produces tons of noise in the shadows. However, the main cam, a 26mm f1.8 wide, performs significantly better. And while I'm time-lapsing on the iPhone, Chiara's been trying out different dish layouts, on the table, the floor, and now the wallpaper.
I want to show what the restaurant has, so when people they see the pictures online or in a magazine, they can feel like being in the restaurant, so they see the chopstick, the cutlery the restaurant use, all the props the restaurant has.
So this is going to be your composition?
Yeah.
Definitely feet is something you want in every food photo.
Of course, my feet are going to be there. Sometimes my socks are going to be there, and I feel so ashamed when I have to show these pictures to the client.
Obviously, a lot of work goes into post-production. Chiara says top-down photos are always crowd pleasers, but by the time I get to have a go, the food's looking a bit tired.
We're going to put some oil on the feed to make it more shiny, juicy, and less dry.
It's funny because, you know, the whole point of taking photos is to make it look delicious, but now you realize that you can't actually eat any of the food after you've taken their photographs because it's just full of oil.
If you're shooting like raw meat or you're shooting steaks, chefs, they don't put salt because the salt dries the meat.
I give you the Crap Photog Crap Gimbal Challenge.
But it's not quite level, so I'm going to have to fix this bow first. You can tell who always gave the crappiest presents come Christmas. 3, 2, 1, here we go. Just making the iPhone do a bungee jump. Terrible for people with vertigo. I have no idea if this is going to work or not. If it does, then hey, we've just got a free cheapo chef's table intro, and if it doesn't, then nobody's going to know.
The biggest advantage of filming on a phone is its size. It lets you get really creative with camera movements.
You know what I really like about this phone is the screen.
It's what they call the Super Retina XDR. It's quite good at tricking you in a way, I guess, because you know, it's such a bright screen and everything looks fantastic on it, and then if you transfer it to the computer, sometimes the quality doesn't quite match what you're expecting. But hey, hats off to Apple for having such a great screen, eh?
I take it back. In Chiara's hands, the phone photo turned out pretty well.
So let's try and do this. We're gonna have a time lapse of the dishes coming in and being taken out. So Chiara, you take one dish, Rika, you take one dish, and you kind of go one after the other.
Instead of using time-lapse mode, which records in 1080p, I'm shooting a regular 4K video and then speeding it up in post. I realised we often don't appreciate how much work goes into shooting a menu. Chiara meticulously styles and lights each composition, so her photos can look relaxed and casual. And thanks to good lighting, the iPhone 11 Pro also produced some pretty good results. It's the second day of our shoot, and we're going to be filming outside in natural light.
Just going to be filming Chiara walking up and down, getting that nice, you know, beauty shot, the documentary style beauty shot. Because this alleyway is quite narrow, it's actually quite a good place to test out the 3 lenses, the ultra wide, which I think is the 13mm full frame equivalent, the wide, which is a 26, and then there's a tele, which is 52. And because we have such good light, image quality should be decent.
The problem is, the sunlight's almost too strong.
You know, when you hear 800 nits, that doesn't actually mean anything, but this is pretty impressive when you put it side by side with my Samsung S10 Plus. I mean, I've got a screen protector on the guy, so maybe that's why it's not as bright, but the 11 Pro is significantly brighter, especially here under strong daylight.
Alright, Cheap Photog Cheap Gimbal Challenge, Part 2.
This is what you do when the toilet is too dirty to sit on. You just do the hover. Oh. Okay. Oh man. Why am I so tall? 3, 2, 1, and walk. 3, 2, 1, let's go.
The wide camera is fantastic when you've got good light, but too much light and Chiara starts being airbrushed into oblivion. I am, however, blown away by the iPhone's image stabilization.
Surprisingly stable, both on the wide and the ultra wide. Even though ultra wide doesn't actually have OIS, it's just a wide and a tele, but very, very impressed. It's almost like I was on a gimbal. Sometimes it does do this though. Just takes forever for the video to load.
Because the iPhone 11 has such great OIS, I'm going to try getting a nice arc shot of Chiara. my crab walking isn't exactly stable, but since I'm shooting on 60p, I'll be able to slow this down and make this movement seem really smooth.
Man, it's crazy. Just a year ago, I remember people were still complaining about not having 4K 60p on full-frame cameras, and now we have it on phones, and nobody even bats an eyelid. The great thing about 60p, though, is that it's more or less enough for your everyday slow-mo. Chuck a 60p on a 24p timeline and slow it down, and you'll make everything look poetic, from, you know, talking and walking to eating. You don't really need to go to 120p, and plus, if you go to 120p, the quality is going to drop too. So I'm filming most of my slow-mo on 4K 60.
However, my normal shots are on 24p, which means a lot of switching back and forth between frame rates.
It's very nice of them to show me that I'm on 4K 60p, but it would be even nicer if they just let me switch to a different frame rate right there and then, as opposed to have to go into settings all the way down to camera and then record video. That's just not convenient.
I want this short film to play like a trailer, a sort of Jiro Dreams of Sushi intro, with Chiara's narration in the background. We found out she originally came to China for love, so we decided to film some pomegranates. Because, you know, symbolism and stuff.
I'm setting up the first shot of our short film, using this tiny pomegranate as my foreground, and actually, because I'm so close to it, getting pretty decent shallow depth of field out of this iPhone. Okay, go. Nice.
For the end of my short film, I'm going to have Chiara eating by herself at the bistro's veranda. That's because, despite being a food photographer, Chiara's often so busy during her shoots that she doesn't even get to eat. This scene will depict a moment of intimacy after a long but fulfilling day of shooting that reaffirms Chiara's passion for food.
I noticed that Chiara eats Chinese noodles the Italian way. Why do you twirl the noodles around your chopsticks before you eat them? This is not spaghetti.
It's more comfort like this.
Right.
Tutorial how to eat noodles like Chiara. Cheers.
I've got to say, you probably are less messy than me. If you were filming me eating noodles, you wouldn't even see my face. My whole head would be in the bowl and I'd be like, because that's the way you're meant to eat them.
Okay.
At the end of the day, you'll still need a tripod for steady shots, but the iPhone 11 Pro's compact size allows you to mount it onto pretty much anything. As a matter of fact, I was going to attach the phone to my gimbal, but the videos turned out to be so smooth I didn't even need it. Plus, shooting on a phone is just so intuitive. There's no need to fiddle about with dials and gimbals, just press record and go. In all honesty, I'm super impressed with this phone. I shot everything on the native camera app, and despite being on full auto, the results it gave me were very respectable. However, there were many problems too. I couldn't set white balance, so my colour temperature was all over the place. Sometimes the Photos app would just get stuck loading, or worse, a time-lapse would spontaneously crop itself. Of course, there's no way the iPhone 11 Pro can compete with a proper camera, but you should never let tech specs hold you back from being creative.
I came to China for love, but I found a career instead. I'm Chinese, but I was raised in Italy. I was always surrounded by good food. Before Instagram was a thing, my friends used to hate me for taking pictures of what we were eating. Every dish has a story, and I see myself as a storyteller. I try to translate into visual language what chefs want to say with their food. Whether we eat pasta or noodles, food has the power to connect us all.
Not bad, not bad. I thought the video was pretty good. You be the judge of that. On the whole, was pretty impressed with the iPhone 11 Pro. The battery life was definitely very good. You know, spent a whole day of filming, didn't need to charge it once. In terms of the camera setup, it's nothing new. The ultra-wide, wide and tele have been on flagship Android phones for a while. However, the implementation is pretty good. I do wish that they would add manual controls on video mode, but I think on the whole, if you were to pick up a phone for its video capabilities, you can't do much better than the iPhone 11 Pro.
Is that on purpose?
Yeah, why is it on torch mode?